How does one night of telling my husband to leave our bed for my best friend, just this once, turn into the moment he stops loving me? Why did I believe pushing him out of his own space was harmless, only to watch him transform into someone cold and methodical, quietly preparing to end our marriage by the law? What began as a joke between friends became the evidence that destroyed my reputation, my family, and every story I tried to control. The notification sound from my phone cut through the silence of our apartment like a blade. Marce is coming over tonight, I announced to Caleb, who was grading math tests at our kitchen table. He's having a rough time with the breakup. My husband looked up from his red pen, his dark eyes searching mine. Tonight? It's already 9:30, Vesper. So, he needs support. That's what friends do. I scrolled through Marcelo's dramatic texts about his ex-girlfriend, rolling my eyes at his theatrics. Marce had always been prone to emotional outbursts, but I'd known him since we were 12. Some bonds transcended adult complications. Can't he stay at a hotel? Or with his brother? Caleb's voice carried that careful tone he used when he was trying not to start a fight. I set my phone down harder than necessary. Are you serious right now? My best friend is hurting, and you're worried about what? Inconvenience. I'm worried about boundaries, Vesper. A grown man sleeping over when we're married. How does that look? The word boundaries made my skin crawl. It sounded so restrictive, so old-fashioned. It looks like I have a friend who trusts me enough to be vulnerable. God, Caleb, we're adults. This isn't some teenage drama. Our 6-year-old daughter, Maya, peered around the corner from the hallway, her dark hair messy from her bath. Why are you talking loud? We're just discussing something, sweetheart, Caleb said, his teacher voice automatically switching to gentle mode. Go brush your teeth. But I heard Uncle Marce's name. Is he coming for pancakes? I smiled at her, ignoring the tension radiating from Caleb. Maybe, baby. We'll see. After Maya disappeared back down the hallway, Caleb leaned forward. She calls him Uncle, Vesper. Doesn't that tell you something about how this might affect her understanding of family dynamics? It tells me she loves him because I love him. There's nothing wrong with that. I pulled out my phone again, typing a quick response to Marce. You can sleep in the guest room tonight if you're so uncomfortable with the arrangement. The words hung in the air like smoke. Caleb's face went completely blank. Not angry, not hurt, just empty. That scared me more than yelling would have. You're asking me to sleep in the guest room of my own home so your male friend can be comfortable in our space. I'm asking you to give us some room to breathe. Marce is going through a crisis, and I need to be there for him without worrying about your insecurities. Caleb stood slowly, gathering his papers with mechanical precision. My insecurities? Yes, your insecurities. This jealousy thing is really beneath you. He paused at the kitchen doorway. I've never been jealous of Marcelo, Vesper. I've been concerned about your judgment. 20 minutes later, Marce arrived with a duffel bag and a bottle of wine, his green eyes red-rimmed from crying. He looked devastatingly handsome even in his misery. The kind of effortless attractiveness that had always made heads turn. His dark hair was disheveled, his designer jacket wrinkled, and he collapsed onto our couch like a broken romantic hero. She said I was emotionally unavailable, he groaned, accepting the wine glass I offered. Can you believe that? Me, emotionally unavailable? I settled beside him, close enough to smell his expensive cologne. She clearly doesn't understand how deep your feelings run. Some people can't handle that kind of intensity. Caleb emerged from our bedroom in his pajamas, heading toward the guest room with a pillow under his arm. The sight of him carrying his own bedding, like a displaced person, sent a strange thrill through me. I was choosing my friend over my husband's comfort, and that felt powerful. Night, Caleb, Marce called out, not bothering to hide his satisfaction. Good night. Caleb's voice was neutral, professional. After he closed the guest room door, Marce turned to me with a grin. I love that you always put friendship first. It's so rare. We talked until almost 2 a.m, dissecting his relationship, analyzing his ex's psychology, planning his comeback strategy. Marce had always been a master storyteller, and even his heartbreak was entertaining. He sprawled across our couch with casual ownership, his sock feet propped on our coffee table, making himself completely at home. "You're the only person who really gets me, Vesp," he said as I walked him to the guest room. "Caleb's a lucky guy." "I'm the lucky one," I replied, meaning it. I fell asleep in my empty king-sized bed, feeling righteously independent. Caleb's absence felt like space to breathe rather than loss. I'd stood up for my friendship, refused to let marriage make me small and suspicious. This was what modern partnership looked like: trust, freedom, mutual respect for outside relationships. I woke up to silence. The guest room door was open, and Caleb was gone. His car keys were missing from the hook by the door. Maya was still asleep, and Marce was snoring softly in the guest bed, but my husband had vanished without a word. "Where did Daddy go?" Maya asked over her cereal, her legs swinging from the breakfast bar stool. "He had some early errands," I lied smoothly, texting Caleb for the third time. The read receipts showed he'd seen my messages, but no responses came. Marce shuffled into the kitchen wearing one of Caleb's old college t-shirts, and I felt a weird flutter of possessiveness. He looked good in my husband's clothes. The blue brought out his eyes. "Coffee smells amazing," he said, kissing my cheek in greeting. "You're a lifesaver, Vesp." Maya giggled. "Uncle Marce, that's Daddy's shirt." "He borrowed it," I said quickly. "Finish your breakfast, baby." At the non-profit office, I couldn't concentrate on the donor spreadsheets. Caleb still hadn't responded to my texts, and his silence was starting to irritate me. Was he really going to pout all day over one night? "Earth to Vesper," Marina Fields called from the next desk. "You look like you're plotting world domination." Marina was my closest work friend, a fellow event coordinator with a talent for gossip and a weakness for drama. She lived vicariously through other people's relationship chaos, since her own marriage was aggressively boring. "Marcy stayed over last night," I said, knowing she'd want details. Her eyes lit up. "Shut up. How did Caleb handle that?" "Like a mature adult, mostly." I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the photos from last night. Marce and I on the couch, wine glasses raised in a toast. Marce laughing at something I'd said, his head thrown back. Me curled against his side during a movie, both of us looking relaxed and intimate. "These are gorgeous," Marina breathed, leaning over my shoulder. "You two look like a couple in a magazine. Post them." "Should I?" The idea sent a little thrill through me. "Won't people think—" "Who cares what people think? You're allowed to have friends. Besides, you look amazing in these." I selected the best photo, Marce and me clinking wine glasses, both of us glowing in the warm lamplight of our living room. I added a caption: "Sometimes the best therapy is good wine and better friends." Friendship goals: DOS, modern marriage, authenticity. The likes started immediately. Comments poured in from colleagues, college friends, distant relatives. Most were supportive, but I noticed a few raised eyebrows hidden behind diplomatic phrasing. "Looks cozy," from my cousin Jennifer. "Lucky Caleb, such a trusting husband," from our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. "You two have always been close," from Marina, adding fuel to the fire. By lunch, the post had over 200 likes. I felt vindicated, powerful. See? The world didn't collapse because I had a male friend. People could handle nuanced relationships. That afternoon, Marina and I met for coffee at Trattoria Lira, our usual spot for gossip sessions. The Italian restaurant was crowded with the after-work crowd, perfect for people watching and being seen. "I still can't believe Caleb just disappeared this morning," I said, stirring my cappuccino. "It's so passive-aggressive." "Maybe he's jealous," Marina suggested. "I mean, Marce is objectively gorgeous, and you two have history." "Friendship history. There's a difference." "Is there, though?" Marina leaned forward conspiratorially. "Come on, Vesp. You've never wondered what if?" Before I could answer, Marce appeared at our table like a summoned spirit. He'd changed into a perfectly fitted black shirt that made his eyes look like emeralds, and I felt that familiar flutter of pride that this beautiful man was my friend. "Ladies," he said, sliding into the empty chair beside me, "I come bearing gossip and an expense account." The next hour passed in a blur of wine and laughter. Marce was performing, he always was, but his charm was infectious. He told stories about his disastrous relationship, flirted harmlessly with Marina, and treated me like I was the most fascinating woman in the room. Other diners kept glancing over at our table. We were that group, the attractive, animated people having too much fun, drawing attention without trying. "I should record this," Marina said, pulling out her phone. "You two are hilarious together." "Do it," Marce said, immediately straightening his shoulders and flashing his camera-ready smile. "Vesper, tell them about your theory on emotional availability." I launched into my analysis of modern relationships, gesturing with my wine glass, feeling brilliant and articulate. Marce nodded along, adding commentary, building on my points like we were co-hosting a talk show. Marina captured it all, our easy banter, Marce's hand on my shoulder as he laughed, my animated expressions, the way we leaned into each other like magnets. "This is gold," she said, reviewing the footage. "You're like a power couple. Should I post it?" "Why not?" I was feeling reckless, empowered by wine and attention. Let people see what real friendship looks like. She uploaded the video to Instagram stories, tagging both Marce and me. Within minutes, it was being shared across multiple platforms. The algorithm loved us. Attractive people having photogenic fun always performed well. But then I saw him. In the background of Marina's video, barely visible at a corner table, sat Caleb. He was alone, still wearing his work clothes, with a coffee and a stack of papers spread in front of him. His face was completely expressionless as he watched us perform our friendship for the camera. Our eyes met across the restaurant. For a moment, the world stopped. Then he gathered his papers, left money on the table, and walked out without looking back. "Oh shit," Marina whispered, following my gaze. "Was that—" "Yeah." My stomach dropped like a stone. Marce, oblivious to the drama, was already checking his phone notifications. "This is blowing up, Vesp. Look at all these comments." I couldn't look. All I could see was Caleb's blank face, the careful way he'd avoided our table, the dignity with which he'd removed himself from our public spectacle. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your husband looks thrilled," followed by a screenshot of the video with Caleb's face circled in red. Then another. "Is this the same Vesper Wynne who's married to the math teacher?" Awkward. And another. "Girl, your man is right there and you're cuddling another dude." Messy. The video was going viral, and Caleb's expression, captured in perfect, devastating clarity, was becoming a meme. The meme started appearing overnight. "When your wife asks for space, but means the space between her and her friend," with Caleb's face photoshopped onto a crying emoji. Math teacher calculates the exact moment his marriage ended, over a screenshot of his blank expression. This is why I don't trust just friends, with our video playing on loop. I discovered them during my morning coffee, scrolling through social media with growing horror. Somehow, our private moment had become public entertainment. Strangers were dissecting my marriage, making assumptions about my character, turning my husband into a joke. "This is insane," I told Marina over the phone. "People are acting like I committed adultery because I had dinner with a friend." "It'll blow over," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "These things always do." Caleb had come home sometime after midnight. I'd heard the front door, the careful footsteps, the guest room door closing. He'd left for work before I woke up, and Maya was asking increasingly pointed questions about why Daddy was sleeping in the wrong room. "Maybe he snores now," I told her, hating the lie. "Daddy doesn't snore. You do." At the office, the atmosphere was different. Conversation stopped when I entered rooms. Colleagues who usually greeted me warmly suddenly found their computers fascinating. Nate Collins from accounting actually smirked when he saw me, pulling up the viral video on his phone. "Rough night for your husband," he said with false sympathy. "That face he's making, pure poetry." "It's being taken completely out of context," I snapped. "What context makes this okay?" He tilted his phone toward me, showing the comments section. "People are calling you the poster child for emotional cheating." "That's ridiculous. Marcelo is my friend. We weren't doing anything wrong." "Tell that to your husband's face in this video." The morning got worse. Our executive director, Patricia Reynolds, called me into her office with the kind of smile that meant trouble. "Vesper, we need to discuss your social media presence," she said, closing the door behind me. My stomach clenched. "What about it?" "Several donors have reached out with concerns. The Hartwell Foundation specifically mentioned seeing content that made them question our organization's values." "My personal life has nothing to do with my professional performance." Patricia's smile never wavered. "In the nonprofit world, everything is connected. We depend on community trust, family values, wholesome image. When our staff becomes the subject of viral relationship drama, it's not drama, it's friendship. It's perception, Vesper. And right now, the perception is that you publicly humiliated your husband while flaunting an inappropriate relationship. That reflects on all of us." I left her office with a formal warning in my file and instructions to consider the optics of my personal choices. The injustice burned in my chest. I was being punished for having friends, for refusing to live in a box of outdated expectations. That evening, I decided to fight back. "We're having people over for dinner," I announced when Caleb returned from work. "Tomorrow night, my parents, your dad, Maya's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, and Marce." Caleb paused in hanging up his jacket. "Why?" "Because I'm tired of hiding. If people want to make assumptions about our friendship, they can meet him properly and see how wrong they are." "Vesper, I don't think—" "I'm not asking, Caleb, I'm telling you. We're going to show everyone that we're a strong, modern couple who doesn't cave to gossip and judgment." The dinner was a disaster from the first course. My mother, Rosa, arrived with her lips already pursed in disapproval. She'd seen the viral video, everyone had, and her traditional Italian sensibilities were deeply offended. "Where do you want me to put this?" she asked, holding a covered dish like a weapon. "Kitchen counter is fine, Mom. Thanks for making the lasagna." "I made it for Maya," she said pointedly. "And Caleb." Caleb's father, Harvey, arrived next, shaking hands with everyone in his formal military way. He'd been widowed for 3 years, and his grief had hardened him into a man of few words and strong opinions. He nodded politely when introduced to Marce, but I caught the way his eyes lingered on my friend's expensive clothes and casual charm. Marce, for his part, was performing again. He complimented my mother's cooking, discussed literature with Harvey, charmed Maya with magic tricks. He was being the perfect guest, and I felt vindicated watching him win over my family, until the conversation turned to marriage. 33 years, my mother was saying, describing her relationship with my late father. "We never spent a night apart unless someone was in the hospital." "Different generation," Marce said with a smile. "People are more independent now, less possessive." Harvey's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Possessive? You know, the whole 'you belong to me' mentality. Vesper and Caleb have something much healthier. They trust each other completely." I beamed at him, grateful for the support. "Exactly. We don't operate from fear and insecurity." "Is that what we're calling it?" Harvey asked quietly. The table went silent. Even Maya stopped eating, sensing the shift in energy. "What do you mean?" I asked. Harvey looked directly at me with those pale blue eyes that were so much like Caleb's. "I mean, there's a difference between trust and disrespect, between independence and selfishness." "Harvey," my mother warned. "No, let him speak," I said, my voice rising. "I'd love to hear how supporting my friend is selfish." "Supporting your friend isn't selfish," Harvey replied calmly. Asking your husband to sleep in the guest room so another man can be comfortable in his home. That's selfish. Making your marriage into a public spectacle for social media, that's selfish. I never asked. You did ask. Caleb spoke for the first time all evening. You told me to give you space, to sleep in the guest room. You said I was being insecure for having concerns. The betrayal hit me like cold water. He was supposed to support me, not air our private discussions in front of our families. You're taking it out of context, I said. What context makes it appropriate? Harvey asked, echoing Nate's earlier words. Marce leaned forward, his charm shifting into something more aggressive. With respect, sir, you don't know the full situation. Vesper was being compassionate to a friend in crisis. Some people value loyalty over appearances. And some people value marriage over friendship, Harvey shot back. That's an outdated binary, Marce said. Modern relationships. Harvey's voice was ice. Is that what we're calling adultery now? Nobody's committing adultery, I exploded, standing so fast my chair scraped against the floor. This is exactly the kind of narrow-minded thinking that keeps people trapped in loveless marriages. Maya started crying. The sound cut through my rage like a blade. My 6-year-old daughter was sobbing at the dinner table while adults fought over her head, and I realized how far things had spiraled. Caleb immediately went to her, lifting her into his arms and murmuring comfort. She buried her face in his shoulder, her small body shaking with confused tears. I think we should go, my mother said, already reaching for her purse. Mum, wait. No, Vesper, this is enough. She looked at me with deep disappointment. You're embarrassing yourself and hurting people who love you. Harvey followed her out without another word. Marce made some excuse about an early morning and disappeared, leaving me alone with my husband and traumatized daughter. Look what you did, I said to Caleb, but the words sounded hollow even to me. He didn't respond. He just carried Maya to her room for an early bedtime, leaving me standing in the wreckage of my perfect dinner party. Later that night, I found him packing clothes into a suitcase. Where are you going? Maya and I are staying at my father's for a few days, he said without looking up. You can have all the space you need. You can't take my daughter. Our daughter. And yes, I can. She's scared and confused, and she needs stability right now. I'm her mother. Then act like it. He zipped the suitcase closed and finally looked at me. Act like a wife, act like a partner. Stop acting like a teenager who thinks the world revolves around her feelings. They left the next morning while I was in the shower. I came out to an empty apartment and a note on the kitchen counter. We'll be at Dad's. Maya can call you any time. C. For the first time since this whole mess started, I was completely alone. The silence in the apartment was deafening. Without Maya's chatter and Caleb's steady presence, our home felt like a museum of my mistakes. I wandered from room to room, seeing everything through new eyes. The guest room where my husband had been exiled, the kitchen table where our family had imploded, the couch where Marce and I had posed for our viral moment. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, but they weren't the supportive messages I'd expected. The narrative had shifted overnight. What started as a debate about modern friendship had become a referendum on my character. Update: husband and kid moved out. Guess the space worked out perfectly. Anonymous gossip account with 50K followers. This woman really chose her side piece over her family and is shocked by consequences. Comment with 2,000 likes. Math teacher husband calculating how much alimony he'll save. Meme with Caleb's face on a calculator. I tried calling Marina, but she didn't answer. When I finally reached her, her voice was strained. Vesper, I think we should lay low for a while. What do you mean? I mean, my boss saw the video. HR wants to talk to me about professional conduct on social media. This is affecting my job too. The betrayal stung. So you're abandoning me because of workplace gossip? I'm protecting myself because this got way bigger than either of us expected. Maybe you should consider doing the same. She hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. My closest work friend, my partner in crime, was distancing herself to save her own reputation. At the office, the isolation was complete. Colleagues who used to invite me to lunch suddenly had conflicting schedules. The break room emptied when I entered. Nate Collins had printed out some of the memes and posted them on his cubicle wall, taking them down only when I walked by. "Having fun with your viral fame?" he asked with a smirk. "It's harassment at this point," I replied. "People are making up stories about my marriage." "Are they making up the part where your husband moved out?" I couldn't answer that. The meeting with HR was worse than I'd anticipated. Patricia Reynolds sat beside the HR director, both wearing expressions of professional concern that barely masked their disapproval. "We've received several complaints," the HR director began. "Donors, volunteers, community partners. They're questioning whether our organization aligns with their values. Because I had dinner with a friend. Because you publicly humiliated your husband while representing our organization on social media," Patricia corrected. "The Hartwell Foundation has temporarily suspended their quarterly donation pending review of our staff conduct policies." The room spun. The Hartwell Foundation was our largest donor. Their money funded half our youth programs. "You're blaming me for their prejudice?" "I'm informing you of consequences," Patricia said coldly. "Real consequences that affect real programs for real children." They put me on administrative leave pending a full review. I cleaned out my desk while former colleagues pretended not to watch, boxing up 5 years of my professional life into cardboard containers. That evening, I sat in my empty apartment with a bottle of wine and my laptop, determined to control the narrative. If everyone wanted to judge me, I'd give them the full story. I crafted a long Instagram post explaining my side. How friendship shouldn't threaten marriage, how trust meant supporting each other's relationships, how society's narrow definitions of appropriate behavior were holding women back from authentic connections. "I refuse to apologize for loving my friend," I wrote. "I refuse to shrink myself to make insecure people comfortable. Marriage should expand your world, not limit it. To everyone sharing memes and making jokes, you're part of the problem." The post backfired spectacularly. "She's doubling down instead of apologizing to her husband." Top comment with 500 likes. "The audacity to play victim when she destroyed her own family." Reply with 300 likes. "Loving my friend, girl, just admit you're cheating." Comment that made my hands shake. But the worst response came from an unexpected source. Maya's school. Mrs. Patterson, Maya's first-grade teacher, called that evening with professional concern, coating personal judgment. "Mrs. Wynne, I wanted to discuss some behavioral changes we've noticed with Maya." My stomach dropped. "What kind of changes?" "She's been withdrawn, distracted. Today she drew a family picture during art time, just her and her father. When I asked about Mommy, she said Mommy was too busy with Uncle Marce." The words hit like physical blows. My 6-year-old daughter was processing my choices through the lens of abandonment, and I hadn't even realized. "She's staying with her father temporarily," I explained. "We're working through some things." "I see. Well, if there are any custody arrangements or family court orders we should be aware of." "There's no custody situation," I said quickly. "This is just temporary." But even as I said it, I wondered if that was true. That night, I found myself digging through Caleb's desk, looking for something, evidence of his plans, clues about his intentions, anything to help me understand what came next. In the bottom drawer, locked with a small key he'd hidden under his desk pad, I found a manila folder labeled Documentation in his careful handwriting. Inside were screenshots of every social media post, printed copies of every meme, time-stamped photos of text message conversations, bank statements showing our joint accounts, copies of Maya's school records, a detailed timeline of events starting from Marce's first sleepover. At the bottom of the folder was a business card for a family law attorney and a yellow sticky note in Caleb's handwriting. Consultation scheduled, Tuesday, 10 a.m. Tuesday was tomorrow. I sat on our bedroom floor, surrounded by evidence of my husband's methodical preparation for the end of our marriage, and finally understood that this wasn't a fight we were having. It was a divorce he was planning. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on our balcony with the folder of evidence, reading through Caleb's documentation like a detective studying a crime scene. The level of detail was staggering. He'd captured everything from the exact timestamps of my Instagram posts to screenshots of comments I'd forgotten making. One document particularly caught my attention. A printed email chain between Caleb and his father, dated 3 days ago. Dad, I need advice about legal options. Vesper's behavior has crossed lines I can't uncross. Maya is asking questions I can't answer. What would you do? Harvey's response was characteristically brief. Protect the child. Document everything. Don't let emotion drive decisions. Call Jim Morrison's office. He handled the Peterson divorce. Professional, discreet, effective. Jim Morrison. The business card in the folder. My hand shook as I realized how long Caleb had been planning this. While I thought we were having a marital spat, he'd been building a legal case. At 7 a.m., I called Maya. Mummy, her voice was bright, innocent, devastating. Grandpa Harvey made pancakes with chocolate chips. That sounds wonderful, baby. Are you having fun? Yeah, but when are you coming to get me? Daddy seems sad. I closed my eyes. Soon, sweetheart. Mommy just has some work things to finish. Is Uncle Marce still sad too? Is that why you can't come home? The question hit like a slap. Even my 6-year-old understood the connection between Marce's presence and our family's absence. No, baby. Uncle Marce is fine now. This isn't about him. But it was about him, wasn't it? Everything had started with Marce, spiraled because of Marce, exploded when I chose Marce's comfort over my husband's concerns. I called Marce after hanging up with Maya. Vesp, thank God, he said, his voice warm with relief. I've been worried sick about you. This whole viral thing is insane. Where have you been? I've been calling for 2 days. I had to get out of town for a bit. The attention was getting crazy. People were recognizing me from the video, asking questions. I'm staying at my brother's place in Sacramento until things cooled down. The casual way he said it, like our friendship hadn't just destroyed my marriage, made my blood boil. Things aren't going to cool down, Marce. Caleb's filing for divorce. Maya won't talk to me. I'm on administrative leave from work. Silence stretched across the phone line. Shit, he finally said. I'm sorry, Vesp. I never thought it would go this far. You never thought? You encouraged all of this. The photos, the videos, the public displays. Hey, you made your own choices. I didn't force you to post anything or invite me over. I was just being a friend. Being a friend? You were performing for an audience, and you know it. Look, maybe we should take a break from hanging out until your situation stabilizes. I don't want to make things worse for you. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, processing the abandonment. Marce, the friend I'd sacrificed my marriage to support, was cutting me loose the moment things got complicated. All his talk about loyalty and authentic friendship evaporated when faced with actual consequences. I was completely alone. That afternoon, I decided to fight back the only way I knew how: social media warfare. I posted a series of photos on Instagram, me looking confident and unbothered in designer clothes, posed artfully around the apartment. The captions were defiant, empowering, completely detached from reality. Living my truth unapologetically. Authenticity, Ne's modern woman, Sine no regrets. Some people fear strong women who refuse to shrink. Their fear isn't my problem. Near boundaries, near self-worth, near evolution. Plot twist, the villain in your story might be the hero in her own. Near perspective, near dur growth, is independence. The responses were swift and brutal. Girl, your husband and daughter left you. Read the room. Strong women don't destroy their families for male attention. This is what delusion looks like in real time. But I kept posting, kept performing strength I didn't feel, kept pretending that losing everything was actually winning. The breaking point came when I saw a new video making rounds on TikTok. Someone had taken footage from the restaurant and created a split-screen comparison. Marce and me laughing and flirting on one side, Caleb's devastated expression on the other. The audio was a trending sound about betrayal, and the caption read, "When she says it's just a friend, but the friend is more important than her husband." The video had 2.3 million views and 400,000 likes. I was a cautionary tale, a meme, a punchline. My marriage had become entertainment for strangers who would forget my name by next week, but remember my face as the woman who chose wrong. That evening, I received a calendar notification I didn't remember setting. Legal consultation, 10 a.m. tomorrow, Morrison and Associates. My blood ran cold. I'd never scheduled a meeting with any lawyer, which meant Caleb had used our shared calendar to notify me. I called him immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, but the messages showed as delivered, not read. He'd either blocked me or turned off read receipts. Panic set in. If Caleb was meeting with a lawyer tomorrow, I needed representation too. I spent the evening frantically Googling family law attorneys, reading reviews, trying to find someone who could see me immediately. Most offices were closed. The few that answered told me they couldn't take new clients without advance consultation. One paralegal, taking pity on my desperation, gave me the name of a lawyer who sometimes took emergency cases. "Diana Chen," she said. "She's expensive, but she's good. And she works weekends." I left 3 voicemails for Diana Chen, each more desperate than the last. At midnight, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Ms. Wynne, this is Diana Chen returning your calls. I understand you need immediate representation." "Yes, thank you for calling so late. My husband is meeting with a lawyer tomorrow, and I think he's filing for divorce." "What makes you think that?" I explained the whole situation, the viral video, the documentation folder, the calendar notification. Diana listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. "Ms. Wynne, I'll be direct with you. Based on what you've told me, your husband has been preparing this case for weeks. He has documentation, witnesses, and a clear narrative about your behavior affecting your child. If he's meeting with Jim Morrison, he's serious about this. What can I do?" "Show up. We'll meet at 9 a.m. tomorrow, review whatever evidence you have, and prepare for whatever he's planning. But I want you to understand, this isn't about winning or losing anymore. This is about damage control." After hanging up, I sat in the dark apartment, finally understanding the scope of my miscalculation. I'd thought I was fighting for modern marriage, for friendship, for independence. But I'd actually been fighting for the right to hurt people who loved me. And I'd won. Diana Chen's office was everything mine wasn't: sleek, professional, intimidating. She was a small woman, with sharp eyes and an expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who charged by the minute and earned every penny. "Let's be clear about our situation," she said, spreading documents across her conference table. "Your husband has been building a case for irreconcilable differences with evidence of behavior detrimental to the marriage and child welfare. You have social media posts that could be interpreted as emotional infidelity, and a viral video that makes you look like a public relations nightmare." I stared at the papers, printed screenshots of my own posts, comment sections, the restaurant video frozen on Caleb's devastated face. "This looks bad," Diana continued, "but it's not criminal. California is a no-fault divorce state. The real battle will be custody and asset division." "What about my rights as a mother?" "You have rights, but rights have to be balanced against the child's best interests. A 6-year-old who's drawing family pictures without her mother in them is concerning to family court judges." At 9:45 a.m., we walked into the family court building. Diana had prepared me for various scenarios, but nothing could have prepared me for the sight of Caleb in a navy suit, sitting calmly beside Jim Morrison, like he belonged there. He looked different, older, more serious, completely in control. When our eyes met across the hallway, there was no recognition, no emotion. He looked at me like I was a stranger. Mrs. Wynne, Jim Morrison stood and extended his hand with professional courtesy. I'm representing Mr. Wynne in these proceedings. Proceedings? I looked at Diana. I thought this was just a consultation. Change of plans, she murmured. We were ushered into a conference room where a mediator waited with a stack of legal documents. The reality hit me like cold water. This wasn't a meeting to discuss divorce. This was divorce happening in real time. Mr. Wynne has filed for dissolution of marriage citing irreconcilable differences, the mediator began. He's also requesting temporary custody arrangements and financial orders. I looked at Caleb, searching for any sign of the man I'd married, but he was studying his hands like I wasn't in the room. Caleb, can we talk privately? I asked. All communication should go through counsel, Jim Morrison said smoothly. I'm his wife. You're the respondent in a divorce filing, the mediator corrected. Let's review the temporary orders. The next 2 hours were a blur of legal terminology and financial calculations. Caleb had requested primary physical custody of Maya, with supervised visitation for me, until the respondent demonstrates stability and appropriate boundaries. Supervised visitation, like I was a danger to my own daughter. This is insane, I said, my voice rising. I never hurt Maya. I never did anything to endanger her. You exposed her to adult relationship drama, Jim Morrison replied calmly. You brought male overnight guests into the family home. You prioritized social media attention over family stability. These behaviors created an environment harmful to a child's emotional development. It was one night, one friend staying over. It was a pattern of behavior documented over several weeks. Jim Morrison opened a folder and spread out the evidence like playing cards. Instagram posts prioritizing your friend over family concerns. Public displays of affection with another man while married. Viral videos that subjected your daughter to public humiliation about her family situation. Diana squeezed my arm, warning me to stay calm, but the injustice was overwhelming. Where's Maya now? I demanded. Safe, Caleb spoke for the first time, his voice steady and cold, with people who put her needs first. I put her needs first. Everything I did was about creating a healthy environment where she could see strong relationships. You created an environment where she draws family pictures without her mother, he interrupted, where she asks why Mommy loves Uncle Marce more than Daddy, where she cries at school because other kids are showing her videos of her parents fighting. The words hit like physical blows. I hadn't known about the videos at school, hadn't realized how far the humiliation had spread. The temporary orders are reasonable, the mediator said, sliding papers across the table. Mrs. Wynne will have supervised visitation twice weekly, pending family counseling and demonstration of appropriate boundaries. Mr. Wynne retains primary custody and decision-making authority regarding the child's education and medical care. What about our assets? Diana asked. California community property laws apply. The family home will be sold, proceeds divided equally. Retirement accounts, investments, and debts will be split 50-50. I signed the papers because I had no choice. Each signature felt like giving away pieces of my life, but Diana assured me this was just temporary. We could fight the permanent orders later. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt hollow, defeated. Caleb and his lawyer walked ahead of us, their conversation quiet and professional. He never looked back. What happens now? I asked Diana. Now you follow the orders exactly. No social media posts about the divorce. No contact with your husband except through lawyers. Show up for supervised visitation on time, every time. prove you can prioritize your daughter over your need to be right. And if I do all that, maybe you get shared custody in 6 months. Maybe you rebuild some kind of relationship with your daughter. Maybe you learn to live with the consequences of your choices. That afternoon, I returned to our apartment, my apartment now, to pack Caleb's remaining belongings. He'd arranged for movers to collect everything while I was at court, but a few personal items remained. On the kitchen counter, he'd left a single manila envelope with my name written in his careful handwriting. Inside was a letter, 2 pages of his precise script. Vesper, I'm not writing this to hurt you or to justify what happened. I'm writing it because after 12 years together, you deserve an explanation that isn't filtered through lawyers. I never asked you to choose between our marriage and your friendship with Marcelo. I asked you to consider appropriate boundaries, to think about how your choices affected our family, to include me in decisions that impacted our home. You heard requests for basic respect as demands for control. You heard concerns about our daughter as expressions of jealousy. You heard my pain as an attack on your independence. I don't know when you stopped seeing me as your partner and started seeing me as an obstacle to your authentic self. But watching you choose a friend's comfort over our family's stability, watching you turn our private struggles into public entertainment, watching you prioritize social media validation over our daughter's emotional security, I realized you'd already left our marriage. I'm just making it legal. Maya asks about you every day. She loves you completely, the way children do. I hope you'll use this time to become the mother she deserves and the woman you want to be. Not for me, not for public approval, but for her. I hope you find what you're looking for. Caleb. I read the letter 3 times, then sat on our kitchen floor and cried until I had nothing left. 6 months later, I stood outside Maya's school, waiting for my supervised visitation. I'd followed every court order, attended every counseling session, stayed off social media completely. The viral videos had faded into internet history, replaced by newer scandals and fresher memes. Maya ran toward me with a gap-toothed smile, her backpack bouncing against her small frame. "Mommy, I lost another tooth. The tooth fairy gave me $5. $5 whole dollars. That's amazing, baby." As we walked toward the playground, she slipped her hand into mine with the easy trust of childhood, and I felt the first real hope I'd experienced in months. "Daddy says you're learning to make better choices," she said matter-of-factly. "Daddy's right. I'm trying very hard to be better." "Good. I want you to come home soon."